Welcome, everyone. We are glad you could join us today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over who we are. If you don't know, you could check out our LinkedIn profiles, but suffice it to say, we're both FinServ marketing pros, lovers of literature, and defenders of the arts. I'm the founder of Lexicon Advisor Marketing, your outsourced marketing team for multi-advisor RIAs, and Derek is the owner of Constellar Created, a kick-ass copywriting company serving the FinServ space as well as others. I wish I could say today that I'm caffeinated enough to tell you everything there is to know about using AI in advisor marketing, but that threshold will probably never exist, as there is just simply too much to cover, especially in an hour, and only a few months after the technology has been released upon the world. What we will do, though, is pull back the curtain on how we use AI in our marketing so you can proceed at your own risk. Then we'll dive deeper into questions of just because we can doesn't mean we should, and pontificate on the future of humanity in relation to this new tech and where it is headed. Ooh. Posing the question, perhaps, where does authenticity and the human experience really exist? So without further ado, welcome to the shit show, which could be life after AI.
Well, Olivia, you and I certainly have been talking about this for a number of weeks now, and I know we're going to get into why this webinar almost didn't happen. When you had broached the idea of our getting together again, because we had a wonderful conversation for the Get Advisor Fit podcast. This was the idea I had. And I want to just at the start here, give a shout out to a couple of people who have really kind of set me on this path and who have been very close collaborators and mentors in terms of opening up this can of worms. Antoinette Rodriguez with Marfi Mastermind Community and Nikki Clark at FMG have been absolutely instrumental. So I want to say thank you to both of them and welcome them into the conversation. The other part of this, just to start, I want to say the thing that I think a lot of us are thinking and that maybe doesn't get said out loud often enough, but I'm fucking tired of this conversation, right? And I'm saying this as someone like you, Olivia, who is an adopter of this technology, right? And I know we have people on this call who are also keenly invested in pushing the envelopes of what these technologies can do. And so this isn't to say I've lost my enthusiasm. I think there's tremendous potential. And right as we were getting underway, we were talking about one of those new integrations that exists, Fathom, that Zoom has brought into its system. But this is complicated, right? And so my enthusiasm is tempered. I know one of the things we were talking about this morning, and this was in light of the Time Magazine article that was making the rounds just yesterday about the letter that has been posted. And let me share my screen to bring. So this is an open letter that's been published by Future of Life Institute. And this is the letter that was featured in the Time Magazine article. You're going to see a lot of names on this list that are extremely, extremely familiar to you. And this open letter basically is encouraging the companies that are developing and deploying these technologies to put the brakes on so that we can be more considered in the ways in which we're folding it into our day-to-day lives and our day-to-day business operations. So, you know, again, I know we're going to get into some of the things that ChatGPT can and can't do as we get further, but I think it's important to note that some of the luminaries in the tech sector have signed on to this letter, encouraging us to slow down, not to stop, right? And we're absolutely going to get to this. This doesn't get walked back. AI is here, right? But people like Elon Musk, Steve Wozniak, right? Andrew Yang, Valerie Pisano, Connor Leahy, all of these people have signed on to this open letter that basically encourages us all to just think more carefully about what we're doing as this technology gets rolled out on a day-to-day basis. So again, neither you nor I, Olivia, is necessarily a naysayer here, but I think it is important for us to start at the very top of our discussion by mentioning that there are limitations, there are very real and practical concerns, and certainly speaking for myself, I think it's very important to acknowledge that we are moving too quickly right now, and we don't understand what we're doing. And I think that there is cause for caution here.
Right, there absolutely is cause for caution, and this is and one of the other things that was cause for caution from a personal perspective was, why do I want to talk about this at all? Why do I want to share with other people ways that could potentially put me out of a job? Right, we're just being honest here, because that's the way that this product is being marketed, is your all-inclusive virtual assistant, copywriter, marketing program, all of these things, all for this value of $240 a month. So Derek doesn't buy, Derek uses the free version. I did splurge and buy the $240 version because I was tired of it going so slow. It still goes slow, but I don't know. I'm not on the free version anymore, so I can't tell you the difference. But when Derek said, let's talk about AI, I was like, are you fucking nuts? Why are we going to do something like that? But the more that we got into using it and the more holes that were poked in it through our experience, the more that our anxieties were somewhat quelled. So the closer we got to ChatGPT, the more we knew that this conversation needed to happen. We've had ups and downs, good and bad days, AI and I, and now if we can share that with you and it helps you in some way for good, then it will have been worth it.
Well, and you'll see on the screen, this is one of the things that Olivia and I are going to do throughout our discussion. We've typed in prompts. Again, I'm using the free version of ChatGPT, and I do want to underscore the point you've made, Olivia, because it is important. So leading up to, we got on our call a half an hour before the start of recording, just to do the things people do who are preparing for an event, right? Coordinate, kind of review, talk about any additions to the work that we've done, follow up. We were back and forth this morning with yet another round of articles and new research. But we want to give you a sort of hands-on look at how we're using this and some of the ways in which what is largely being packaged as a $240 a year market spend really is anything but. And so this was one of those prompts that I've typed in, right? Can you please tell me whether content marketers should be worried about the introduction of ChatGPT? Now, one of the things, along with the restriction of bandwidth, right? So it took me multiple times this morning to log into ChatGPT. Things are running more slowly, more regularly. Again, I'm using the free version, although Olivia, you said that this was also happening in the paid version. It's happening less over on Bing, right, which features GPT-4, right, which is still free. But to the point here, one of the things that I'm seeing, and this has only happened since that famous quote unquote lobotomy that Microsoft had to step in and do when several of the avatars they've created for the Bing search engine went off the rails and started what is now referred to as hallucinating, right? I know that most, if not all of you, are familiar with all of the hullabaloo surrounding that event. It was second only to Google's botched rollout of Bard. So I don't want to belabor that point. But one of the things that you will see here is that ChatGPT is being much more measured and cautious in its openings, quite often in its responses. And so one of the things in these prompts is that what we're getting are much more measured responses in which that human component is really prioritized. And so we see in the response here that, no, there's nothing to worry about because it's human ingenuity and inventiveness that's driving AI. And those components, particularly in the context of, say, advisor marketing, right, are essential to being able to actually connect with your ideal client. Right? So very measured response. It was a relief, right?
It was.
Well, another one of the things that I just wanted to share with you is one of the ways that you can use this in terms of prompts, because we're going to get into this too. The human component here is absolutely pivotal. And that's why your market spend didn't just drop to $240 a year. That's the $20 a month subscription fee that ChatGPT Plus is associated with. And so here, you're going to see that I've included what's called a limiter, right? That human component takes place on the front end, this whole new industry that's arisen in terms of what's called prompt engineering. And then we're going to get much more into this as we go along on the back end when you really need an expert fact checker, copy editor, and proofreader, because in most cases, the information you're getting isn't accurate, right? And so one of the things you're seeing here I've highlighted for you is I've asked the same prompt, but I've included a limiter that many of us are using. And this is just to basically reset ChatGPT so that the response that follows gives you a different version of what you'd seen before. And so again, I don't necessarily need or want to read this out loud to you, but what you're seeing here is ChatGPT is going to be disruptive. We need to be adjusting to it, but as many jobs as it is displacing, it is also creating jobs alongside it. And our economy is going to have to shift to accommodate that.
So, reality number one, AI is here to stay. It is already embedded in the culture. And in fact, it took just a mere 5 days for ChatGPT to attract its first million users.
So can we pause right there? Can you read? Can you say that again?
It took only 5 days for ChatGPT to attract its first million users.
That's crazy. And thank you, Nikki Clark, for providing that stat, because that's just absolutely astonishing. So just to give some context, the next tech company closest on that list in terms of gaining its first 100 million users is Instagram. It took them 2.5 months. Right. So OpenAI in 5 days hit 1 million users, and it's 1 million plus and counting by the minute.
So to be clear, though, ChatGPT is not the only AI tool out there. There are Jarvis and Jasper as well. They've been around for a hot minute helping bloggers write. For the record, and what it's worth, of the 20 or so writers I've used in the past few years, I can tell which ones use those tools and which ones do not. Long before ChatGPT came along, you can spot it a mile away, which is what we're about to show you. You can go ahead.
Let me get back over here. Am I queuing up 3 here, Olivia?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I am indeed. So here's one of the things that we're seeing. And let me just move this down so I can get, there we go. Can you please provide a bulleted list of the most cited concerns regarding the use of AI in marketing? Again, we're asking the machine to tell us why and how the machine is limited. Here are some of the concerns: privacy and security. This is a really big deal, right? But keep in mind, particularly with the free version of ChatGPT, right? And you'll see this on OpenAI's website. The landing page for ChatGPT is very clear about the fact that this is a training set. So every prompt that we're feeding into Bing's chat feature, every prompt we're feeding into ChatGPT and ChatGPT Plus is then included in the data set. So if you're working with a client, please be careful about inputting proprietary information. Any issues in which there might be safety, security, or privacy concerns, you want to be extremely careful about, because ChatGPT will continue to scrape data from its data sets, and the information that you're inputting will be included. It will be randomized, anonymized, but it will be there. So please, please be very, very careful and considerate of that.
Right. If
Another,
you are, especially in a situation where, I had a client last night tell me that he was at the T3 conference recently, and there is a tool available now that you can use that will basically summarize from a recording your client meeting notes and then give you, the takeaways that you can input into your CRM. Now, I don't know what kind of compliance process this tool has been put through. I don't even know the name of it, to be honest with you, but this is not the first time I've heard of people using AI tools to do recaps of client meetings. Now, so I mean, just keep this in mind that there could be security problems here. I mean, this might be something that the SEC is going to have to contend with at some point. Advisors using this for those types of things, because that's sensitive information that you're, Otter AI. Maybe so.
Yep.
That's what, yeah, Dominic just put in the chat.
Yep.
So, just be very careful. Cybersecurity is huge anyways, so just be wary of what you're putting in because you're building the machine in coordination with Microsoft.
Yeah. Well, which is also a point that I want to raise. Again, one of the things I'm hoping emerges from our conversation today and the opportunity I think that we all have, despite the fatigue that many of us are already experiencing. Again, this has all happened over the course of 2 months, right? So I don't think it's a surprise that people are feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling a bit exhausted. They're feeling like they can't possibly catch up, right? We've added so much more to our plates here. Having said that, right, there are, I think, opportunities like today's event where we can gather together, talk about some of these limitations and concerns like bias and discrimination, lack of transparency, job displacement, and over-reliance on technology, right? The ethical concerns that exist here. We have the opportunity in simply having these conversations together to be thinking about and taking action to support the regulations around the introduction of AI that even the creator of ChatGPT, Meena Marathi, has insisted be part of this process, right? For those of you who've been following along, you'll know she's a very strong advocate for putting increasingly robust guardrails around the work that we're doing in using AI in these ways. And so this was just a follow-up prompt that I included here to provide you with some examples and also to give us an opportunity to underscore another point. If you are using the free version of ChatGPT, you have a cutoff point in terms of its data sets of 2021. So I asked ChatGPT to give 2 to 3 sources for each of the bullet points in the previous response. You're seeing here what an extraordinary assistive technology this is, right? For those of us who are, not only do we use our words, but we do all of the work that leads up to that activity, right?
All the research, yes,
is a key component. And for those of us who do it, I know, Olivia, you can speak to this. Boy, howdy, does this ever take a lot of time. And
yeah.
we have the opportunity, particularly if you're using GPT Plus or Bing's chat function, of bringing on board an AI assistive research assistant. And
yeah, so I was just saying this to you before we started. If you want to use AI for something today, use it for this, okay? There are going to be plenty of reasons that I tell you you shouldn't use it to write your blog articles, to write your social media posts, to write your social media conversations, to write anything that is basically client or prospect facing. That's supposed to be representative of you, but as a research assistant, it's probably unbeatable because you are asking it to scour the internet and do the research, assembling the data points that you need to build, let's say, an article, okay, for example. So going and finding all of this stuff, it would have taken me a long time. Now, granted, you're still gonna have to read it. You still have to read the information, but at least it can gather for you these sources. And here's another thing. Okay, compliance, right? So I can't even tell you how many things for advisors since 2018. In the years that I've written, have I had compliance problems? No. when I do get them back, what is it? Cite your source, cite your source, cite your source. So maybe it's you writing and you forgot to cite something, or maybe it's your ghostwriter, your copywriter, and you know, and in this case, most of the time the advisor will send me back the review. Can you please cite these sources? I do send it back. We're done. Blah, blah, blah. But if you're in that position, this is an easy way to just go in, find a source, make sure it's relevant to whatever it is, you know, contribution limits for 2023 or whatever, you know, as an example. And this is a great way to actually to use it. I condone this.
Well, one of the points I want to make, again, I'm using the free version of this, and I'm doing this for the purposes of our presentation, but look at the dates in all of these articles, and you're going to see there's nothing that
right. That's another thing. Don't really expect it to give you anything recent.
Right. And if you're going to have that expectation, you're going to want to use GPT-4. So get over to Bing. Everybody now has access to the GPT-4 powered Bing. There's a chat feature on Bing's search engine, and then it allows you to go through the same iterative process of prompting and getting replies. So you are going to get more current information. And again, just keep in mind, these data sets are being inputted and data is being scraped on a nanosecond by nanosecond basis. So you're seeing here, I've asked a question in 2023 and I'm getting no information beyond 2020. Having said that, to your point, Olivia, this is such an incredible time saver. However, and I want to be very, very careful about this, right? This is a case where you're getting links to articles, and I would suggest that's a very important limiter in your prompt, because you are going to be able to then access each of these articles directly, right? I do want to share with you where this can go off the rails, right? So again, I'm in GPT-3 powered ChatGPT. Another great way, at least on the surface of it, where we have the opportunity to use ChatGPT to streamline the process. I've asked ChatGPT here to summarize an article. I've just inputted the title and the author. I've asked for 5 key takeaways as bullet points with quotes from the article. And then I've included that limiter in terms of pinpointing the audience that I'm attempting to reach: financial advisors and content marketers with an interest in AI language models. Again, these are some of the tools and tricks of prompt engineering, right? Limiters and specificity are hugely important. So you want to write this, you want to break down a complicated SEC ruling, you can add a limiter, explain this for an audience of 10-year-olds, right?
I'm going to put in a little example. Oh, is there a chat? Where's the chat?
There is a chat, but
okay.
Please feel free to share your screen. I've pulled the share screen.
Okay. Well, now I forgot what I was going to do. Oh, I was going to show some examples of limiters. Okay.
Fantastic. Cool.
Which I think have become helpful for me. Now, the first thing that I do whenever I'm using the tool is to tell it what I want it to be. Okay, just ignore all that on my screen. I like to tell my AI who it's going to be that day. So pretend it's dressing up for Halloween. Okay, we're going to say, all right, AI, let's see who you're going to be today. Act like a financial advisor. Okay, this is not the example I wanted to be at. What was the example that I wanted to be at right now? Common financial, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I don't have that one up there. That's something else that I wanted to get to, but okay, let me find one with, okay.
And while you're looking, Olivia, I just want to mention to everyone, you all caught a very brief glimpse of the outline that Olivia and I have put together, which we were talking about before we got on our prior call to the webinar going live. I think we both really wished we just could read from start to finish. So we had put in so much time and effort. And you all know this, right? A scripted event is nothing like an event like this, where there's always the possibility of things going slightly off the rails.
All right. Here, we're
But
going off the rails. We are going right into my inbox. Okay. Here
I
we go.
love it.
All right. I was not planning to do this, but this is because we
I
just
love
keep
it.
it real around here. All right. So this is a prompt that I found on LinkedIn early days of when ChatGPT came on the scene. There's a lot of things you can do here. Look, act like whoever it is that you want it to be. Sometimes I tell it to be a marketing professional. Sometimes I tell it to be a financial advisor. It doesn't always work, but the idea is that you are going to tell it who it's going to be today. Craft a blog post that provides a detailed overview of the features and benefits of whatever it is. Let's say passive investment strategies tailored to the specific needs and pain points of your high net worth business owners. Use language, I will say it takes some finessing, but use language and tone that resonates with high net worth business owners to demonstrate how business consulting services address their unique desire to pay less in taxes. Integrate strong SEO keywords like, and then you can, this is something that you can do beforehand. You can ask ChatGPT to generate a list of keywords. Use a specific data testimonials, leverage the power of storytelling to illustrate impact. This doesn't work very well. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's very, very cheesy. Let me show you. Let me show you right now, actually. Well, I got to find it, but let's see. Might be here. No, I don't know where it is. See, I wasn't even going to show this. This is why we're going off the rails. But anyways, these are examples of limiters. You want to tell it exactly what to do in the best of your ability. Now, I think that it doesn't matter if I show this to you because you're probably not going to know what to put in there anyways. But give it a go, see what you think, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to run into these problems that Derek and I have spent all of this time putting together. And this is really what I think is worth talking about.
And I also, as you're pulling up this example, and I have an example or two to share with you as well, I think it's important to underscore that point that you've made, Olivia, in that so much of those limiters are extremely helpful, and so much of the work that we're doing appears on the surface to be time-saving activity, right? I know when I had my first walkthrough, my first hands-on practical walkthrough of ChatGPT, up to that point, I had had no concerns and was not experiencing the existential crisis that everyone around us seemed to be having. When I had my first walkthrough, I realized where everyone's fear and anxiety and concern lay, because it is extraordinary. And the two of us are really only touching the surface of what's capable here, right? Going from a YouTube video to a transcription in the snap of a finger, from that to a 600-word blog article, from that to a social media campaign that you're able to deploy over the course of a week in your content management system, right? It is absolutely extraordinary what you can do and how quickly you can do it. But Olivia and I want to share with you where some of the concerns that we're having and that others, like the people who have signed on to that open letter, are having rest in this work. Because on the surface, and I know, Olivia, you had pulled in some information from James Pollard, and I think we want to give him a little bit of airtime here, because the points he's made are important, and they have everything to do with acknowledging the ways in which we've already woven these technologies into our day-to-day operations. And at the same time, very quietly, he does an excellent job, particularly from a marketing perspective, of encouraging us to put the brakes on. So I know we have something, I know you had something from James, maybe we can share that here and then take a look at some of the ways that ChatGPT doesn't do what everyone is telling us it does.
Right. So in his email, I think it was in his open circle, inner circle newsletter or whatever that he does every month. So I think his March inner circle newsletter, his advertising for it was about the uses for ChatGPT. And it was, somewhere in the notes, but something to the effect of it can help you, summarize your notes, schedule things for you, and light writing. Okay, we need to pay attention to this light writing thing. Okay, why is the diminutive needed? It's because it's not a writer. You're not going to get the same product from this as you're going to get from a copywriter, and I'm about to show you why. Act like a financial advisor. Okay, tell me why not doing anything is an active decision. I was in the middle of writing a client communication letter for an evidence-based advisor the other day. It was in regards to market volatility because there were some active managers coming around, promised them higher returns, and they had a couple clients that said, hey, we're concerned about our long-term plan here, and we have some people, we have some birds in our ears saying that they can get us a better return with some, more active management style. So this client communication letter in particular was addressing, those concerns. And part of that, the ending of the conclusion of the letter was that not doing anything is an active decision. And I needed a little fodder to get my brain going because I was already at the end of the letter and I was tired. So I said, let me ask my robot. Now, this is the answer that I got. As a financial advisor, I want to emphasize that not taking any action with your investments is in fact an active decision. Okay, that's what I told it to say. Yes, that's what I wanted to know. Now, why? Opportunity cost. Let's read this. By not making any changes or adjustments to your investment portfolio, you may be missing out on opportunities to improve your returns or better align your investment with your financial goals. Okay. The market is constantly evolving and new investment procedure, products, and opportunities arise regularly. That is true. Failing to take advantage of them could result in an opportunity cost. What the fuck does that mean? That means nothing to me. This is some garbage that somebody pulled out of a book somewhere. Okay, this reminds me of the first research paper I ever wrote in 5th grade. I decided I was going to take on some topic I knew absolutely nothing about, which was the Spanish Inquisition. I didn't understand a word of any of the research that I did. All I did was amalgamate the words that I saw in the research, put them into a paper to make it look like I knew sort of what was going on. I knew nothing about the Spanish Inquisition before I did the research, while I wrote the paper, or after I turned it in, and I couldn't tell you much about it today. So let me tell you that this is not the kind of stuff that is going to get people interested in your services. All right, let's look at the next one. And this, I would like to first point out before we get into these 2 points, points 2 and 3. Asset allocation drift. Okay, over time, the value of various assets in your portfolio may change, causing it to drift. Okay, yes. If you don't periodically rebalance your portfolio, your investments may no longer align with your risk tolerance. Okay, what is the result of that? Okay, you're just telling me what I told you, basically. You're telling me surface bullshit nonsense. Okay, anybody can find this on the internet. Your client needs to know more than this. They need to know what is the result of your investments no longer aligning with your risk tolerant and investment objectives. Is it that you're going to lose all your money? Is it that you're going to have to downsize your home? Is it that you're not going to be able to retire on time? What are the emotional stakes that are attached to this? This is not a complete piece of work that you can put out with any integrity, knowing that you're trying to attract people to help solve their problems. Let's look at this one. Changing personal circumstances. As your life evolves, your financial goals, risk tolerance, and investment horizon change. Yes, we know that. If you don't regularly review and adjust your investment strategy to reflect these changes, you may find yourself falling short. What is the result of falling short on your financial goals and taking more risk? What happens when that happens? We don't wake up every day and say, oh boy, I hope I don't fall short of my financial goals today, or take on more risk than I'm comfortable with. All right, bye honey, have a great day. These are not things that we think about, because we don't have any emotional attachment to these words. There's no examples. There's no meat here. Okay, let's keep going because I can't. Can you tell how excited I'm getting? I'm starting to sweat. Inflation erodes the purchasing power of your money over time. by not actively managing your investments to counteract the effects of inflation, you may be reducing the real value of your wealth. I am not writing for an active manager. I am writing against active management, but your AI is not going to know that. So this point, you're going to have to come up with your own thing here. But I also like to point out the repetition that is just makes this sound like it came from a robot. If you don't, here again, that's like even 4 sentences, not even 4 sentences away. If you don't do this, if you don't do this, by not doing this, let's speak like humans. We have to speak to each other like human beings. We cannot talk to each other like robots. This is ridiculous. This is why the internet is going to be flooded with trash, garbage, just like the landfills are filled with fast fashion, okay? That's the post that I made a couple months ago that it's really got people's attention because I show this picture, this gigantic landfill, and this woman digging through heaps of clothes, probably this 10 times the size of my home. And this is the result of fast fashion. Well, this is the result of fast AI language generation. And what is going to happen is the internet is going to be absolutely over flooded with all of this bullshit. And you know what's going to happen? It's just like when we see ads in our news feeds or other things that our brains have learned to tune out, because the way that our brains operate is that we are on alert to survive. So we notice things that are out of the ordinary or things that come into our field of vision that are not normal. So over time, we learn to recognize things that are not a threat or not helpful to our situation. And so what's going to happen is, and is already happening, is that we are able to identify AI language generated text and we ignore it. So if you would like your prospects to ignore what you're writing, then by all means, please use ChatGPT to fuel your marketing initiatives. But I really don't think that's what you want to do, especially because it's hard enough to sell financial services as it is. It is not a very trusted space by most people unless they were brought up in a family where a financial advisor was a thing, which is, usually the case with generational wealth, but for those folks that weren't brought up that way, selling them this is not easy in the first place. So let's not make it any harder by feeding them this shit. So two things that this example points, well, there's a lot of things I think, but the reason I put this example in there is because it gives me the opposite of what I was looking for. So the most important sentence here is, I think this was it. No, it's not taking any action with your investments is an active decision that carries its own sets of risks and implications. Okay, no, that wasn't the sentence. Which one was it? See, I'm too excited now. I can't even think about it.
Well, okay. Did you find it?
Yeah, I did. Remember that doing, okay. I think it's in this one. Where is it? Oh, remember that doing nothing in the face of significant market changes can be just as consequential as taking action. Okay, technically, this says what I wanted it to say, which is not taking action and pulling all your money and moving to cash is just as influential as doing something for the sake of doing something when the market is down, right? But there's syntax error here and also connotation error, which makes it not read that way. So I'm just going to show you my notes. In graduate school, my professor would have marked this as syntax error, which is a fancy way of saying the order of the words is distorting the message. Here's why. Stylistically, the brain is signaled by the order of words to heed a warning. Remember that doing nothing in the face of significant market changes. So our brain is already on high alert here. When in fact, we're not trying to warn them against this at all. We are condoning it. We're condoning that inaction is actually an action. So there's a connotation problem here too. The connotation of can be just as consequential holds a negative connotation, signaling the brain that something is to be avoided. But that's not what we're trying to say at all. So what I'm telling you is a lot of things, but there are lots of errors here that make putting a prompt in, even if it's well engineered. I'm not saying that one was, because like I said, I was simply looking for fodder for something I was already writing. I wasn't looking for a language replacement. But if you were in this situation, if you were a financial advisor and you were looking for a language replacement because you read one of my posts on LinkedIn that said you need to communicate to your clients because some ungodly amount of number of people leave their financial advisors for a lack of communication, you said, I'm going to go in right now and I'm going to write this email because Olivia said I need to. And so you go to ChatGPT and you get something like this, you're just not going to be making the impact that you think you're making and could actually be hurting yourself. So I'm going to take a break and I'm going to let Derek continue because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Well, a couple of things, a few things, right? Just for the sake of accuracy, more than two. We're starting to see in the Q&A and in the conversation that's arising, people really emphasizing the human component. I think you did a very good job of outlining where that is lacking in what ultimately is a canned response that ChatGPT is giving you. Now, again, in that case, there were a lot of inaccuracies, but there was some information you could potentially use. That essentially is a handoff for your marketer or your marketing team, right? And so what we've done is we've created the creative brief or the idea that you would hand off to the person who you entrust to do your marketing. So again, we're taking care of the early steps in the process here. And that's where, and this is one of the things that James had said, that's where AI assistive technology thrives, right? That's where it really has a profound effect in terms of efficiency. One of the other things in terms of repetition, not only is it going to make your marketing sound like a chatbot wrote it, in a space in which human connection is your calling card, it is also going to derail whatever content you're posting because of the ways that companies like Google and Microsoft, the parent company of LinkedIn, are recalibrating their algorithms to hunt out garbage in, garbage out content like this. And so your website ranking in terms of search results, the optimization of your site and your profile is going to decrease exponentially because the algorithms are being keyed to search out repetitive chatbot generated content like this. So please also keep that in mind from a marketing perspective. A couple of other points I want to share with you, and before I do, I want to talk a bit about what went into training ChatGPT. And again, I want to thank Nikki Clark for this information. I also want to read to you a quote from Drew Harwell, who's a tech reporter for the Washington Post, and it speaks to another one of the points that you'd made, Olivia. But briefly before I do, I also want everyone to be thinking about this, because the people I'm seeing on our call here are all ethical operators. You're white hats, you're good people doing good work. We need to be considering the costs, the human costs, the ecological costs, the environmental costs here of running this type of digital infrastructure. And just to give you a very brief window into what I mean here, you're going to hear Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI and Microsoft, talk a great deal about their nimble staff, right? I think OpenAI is at the time of the writing of the article I'm referencing was under 400 people, right? And that's a point that they spend a lot of time broadcasting. The people who were largely responsible for training these data sets and the quote unquote machine learning that's taking place were independent contractors, often in countries outside the United States, who were being paid pennies on the dollar to do this work. So all of the benefits that we're reaping, and here's a surprise, kind of how the global economy works, is built on the backs of exploitative labor. So please, again, it's not something that's being talked about, but you're all extremely intelligent, thoughtful, compassionate people. This is part of the conversation that I think we have an obligation to continue to push out into the world. And so I did want to bring that up. I also do want to read to you, just to underscore the point you made. Again, this is from Drew Harwell, writing for the Washington Post. This was an interview that he'd done. Excuse me, this was a Slate interview that Harwell had done. Google's Bard, Microsoft's Bing, All of these tools do the same thing, and they're all very imperfect. They can speak eloquently, but they're effectively BS generators. They do this thing called hallucinating, where they just start spewing nonsense. Remember, they're just trying to associate words and phrases with each other based off texts they've read before. They don't know facts. They don't understand what they're saying. If you ask it for an original source for what it just claimed to you, it'll make up a book out of nowhere. And I know, Brian, this was one of the questions that you had asked about providing financial advice. And it is another very important caveat. ChatGPT and the GPT architecture has built into it an obligation to provide a response. Even if the response is, I don't have an answer for you, you're going to find in almost every case, there's then a follow-up. So if you prompt ChatGPT to give you financial advice, it will say, I'm an AI chatbot. I can't, predict the markets. I am not equipped to provide advice like that. But, and then it will begin to list information that may be relevant to you. One of the other points that I want to make, piggybacking, Olivia, on the example that you had shared with us, to go back to that example I had up earlier, that summary, right? Inputted the title of an article, gave it the author, asked it for 5 bullet points. Here we go. We also get a fairly generic summary, right? Now, I'm somebody who is actually asking it to do this for another presentation that I was designing. I am overwhelmed by the amount of articles that I have compiled, and I needed a little help. This summary did not give me that help at all. Too brief, too generic, does not really give me an overview of what Weinstein is doing. However, it does give me 5 key takeaways. It includes quotations. Here's the thing. And again, ChatGPT.
Y'all want to pay attention to this.
ChatGPT is billed as that one-stop shop for us. So here we are. We have a summary. We have 5 bullet points. We have quotations. Cool, right? I now have content that I can fold in. I have quotes I can refer to. If I'm going to then prompt this to build out a 600-word blog article for me or create a sequence of social media posts, I have the information and I can just create a prompt underneath this one that asks it to do that. Based on your summary, can you give me 3 social media posts? What you're going to find is it will do that. It will include the hashtags that are trending, right? But here's my caveat, and here's what's concerning me underlying everything else. What's the source of the quotations you provided as bullet points in your summary? The first response I get, they're from the article by Bruce Weinstein, right? Published in Forbes, the exact article that I'd asked. But I'm kind of curious because, see, here's the thing. I'm a trained researcher. Every marketer that you work with, worth their weight in salt, is a trained researcher. And so I'm accustomed to asking questions and going to primary sources. I took a look at Weinstein's article and I was a little confused. Those bullet points and quotations aren't in fact from that article. So I ask again, and here ChatGPT begins to actually tell the story. My apologies for the confusion. You're right. The quotations provided in the bullet points aren't from the article. As an AI language model, I generate responses based on patterns and associations, et cetera, et cetera. To clarify, the information provided in my initial response is a summary of the key points. Okay, except that's not true because the word transparency isn't used in the article. So just to put this in context for you, here's what's happened. I inputted a prompt, I got a response. In most cases, that's the end of the story. And somebody's now moving on to the next step in this process, taking that information and attributing it incorrectly to an author from an article in a reliable source that in fact is not part of that article. So why then did you include those bullet points? Again, there's an apology, right? A mea culpa. Transparency isn't used. However, when I scraped the article again, I see that this is a point that came up. So in fact, and then I go in and prompt it again. None of those quotes are actually from the article. So what's happened here is, without your realizing it, or without your marketer realizing it, if they're not doing due diligence here, you're essentially putting false information out, associating it with you and your business, right? And I'll leave it on the table in terms of the issues with compliance and legal as far as that goes. So again, we get an apology, we get quotations that are in fact not quotations, which means in a case that seemingly, up until we shared this example, was pretty cut and dry. Provide me with a detailed summary of the Gartner survey on AI adoption and marketing conducted in 2021. I suddenly can't rely upon any of this information, even though on the surface, it looks pretty cut and dry. What I've had to do is input a prompt, walk through an entire conversation about why the responses aren't accurate. I've now had to go back, do the work that I tasked ChatGPT to do for me. I had to read the article, like you said, Olivia. I had to read the article. And if I were going to use any of that article's content, I'd have to summarize it myself. And I would then have to go in and pull out the quotes that I would use. So even in a case like this, where I'm getting what seems like an accurate overview of a Gartner article, I can't be certain that any of this is accurate any longer. And I wanted to make that point. Again, there are ways to include limiters. There are ways, and this technology continues to be fine-tuned, which is actually the language that the architects and engineers are using here. But we have to be extremely careful about how we're using it. Even simple tasks can become extremely complicated and potentially risky for us.
Right. So I think that, what does this mean for you? So you might not be doing this kind of intense research. You might want to be using it for some lighter things. You're like, oh, this is, well, this is not anything that I would spend my time doing. I'm really interested in using it to do writing my social media posts, or writing my emails to my clients, or things like this that I don't want to hire somebody else to do. So I hope that what we've been able to show you so far is that, for all intents and purposes, you are not getting those things. At best, you're getting a tool that allows you to create a creative brief, or an outline, or a bulleted list of ideas to fully develop on your own, which is more work than most advisors I know want to do. So that's good news for me and Derek. But that's why if you bring a 600-word blog article prompted by ChatGPT to me and say, Olivia, how much to edit this? I will say it is the same price. It is the same price as a regular article, because all you have given me is some bullet points to get started. This means nothing to your clients. This is just, a bare bones. You might as well have sent me an email with 3 bullet points and saved your time and your $240, because I'm starting from scratch, basically. All the things that we saw earlier in the ChatGPT examples that AI can't do, I mean, heck, most humans can't do this, okay? So all the data points in the world, no matter how often they're scraped, do not constitute expertise, nor should they constitute your marketing plan. The more you experiment with this tool, the more that you will realize its limitations, which is why James was so careful in his email to qualify writing as light. And I don't know, in my opinion, is an amalgamation of words produced by an algorithm really writing, or is it more like verbal roulette? Spin the wheel and see what AI has up to offer today. You will encounter a conspicuous and unacceptable amount of repetition, as we pointed out, and just general bullshit nonsense, which I hope is not how you're intending to get clients. Also, if you're concerned about SEO, you're probably going to be penalized if you use this kind of thing. So don't hope that anyone will find you on the internet either. And if you are posting social media posts from the robot, Here's the thing. People are going to notice it. Like I said, they're going to, their mind will say, bullshit alert, and move on. But you know what? Then the next day you actually might feel like writing. I have this great idea. I met with this client and I cannot wait to share this with my network. Well, guess what? They have already in their mind excised you. They're going to roll right over whatever it is that you had to write because of all the other bullshit that you put out. They no longer trust you and they no longer want to stop the scroll for what you have to say because they have been conditioned to pass it up. Now, I know that we're getting close to 12 o'clock. I really hope this thing doesn't turn off. I don't think that it will, but I think that the last thing that we should definitely share, Derek, is where you asked it to be me.
And this is so really kind of speaking to everything that we've shared today. I had created a prompt asking ChatGPT to give us a compliant 500-word blog article that talks about the historical lack of representation in FinServ with an audience of independent advisors with $1 million or more under management. And here's what we get. This is ChatGPT as Olivia's avatar. And for any of you who know Olivia's writing, which I'm assuming all of you do, and if you don't, I think you want to get hip as quickly as you can. This is about as far away. And just to put a fine point on it, Olivia is not a fellow independent financial advisor. And so again, I think it's clear at this point that you're getting a draft in most every case in which you're getting a response from ChatGPT, but this is about as far away and as mechanized and tinny sounding as you could get from Olivia's extremely passionate, compassionate, thoughtful, engaging writing style. And so to trot this out as a representation of what she's capable of doing, it undersells her. I mean, as somebody who uses his words, it makes me speechless. Hello, fellow independent financial advisors. My name is Olivia Luper, and today I want to talk about a critical issue that has plagued the financial services industry for years, the lack of diversity and representation. That ain't how Olivia is going to play that one. And so even though you do get a rough outline, you do potentially get some accurate facts. Again, these would be current as of 2021. You're getting what amounts to a really useless attempt at a blog article. And so this is just another, and one of the other things in terms of repetition, you're going to see this. ChatGPT comes up with so many empty phrases in conclusion, right? In summary, to summarize.
These are the way that we're taught to write in 5th grade. When I was taught the first way that I was taught to write, and I went to a very prestigious private school down here that still exists, where all those Jupiter Island kids go, you know, Tiger Woods kids and shit. Okay, so this was not public school. I went to a very nice school, but the first way that you're taught to write is a 5-paragraph essay. Each paragraph needs to have, you know, a thesis statement supporting, you know, supporting point 1 with a supporting point 2, whatever. And they teach you to use these phrases as a child when you're first learning to write so that you get comfortable. This is not the way that we speak as humans, and this is not the way that we write as adults. This is the way that we learn to write as children. And yes, there's those people that say you should write at a 4th grade reading level so that people can understand what you're reading and don't pass over it. It's not too complex. This is not what they mean. They don't mean use the template that they taught you in 5th grade to learn how to write. They're saying, you know, just don't use, you know, jargon or too complex of words. But this should not be your go-to for your reflection of yourself if you have any sense of integrity.
So we are at 12 o'clock. I certainly want to thank everyone. We did have an active Q&A. I really appreciate that. Again, we don't want to take up any more of your time today. It truly, It was wonderful to see everybody in attendance. However, if you do have some questions, we're happy to open up the floor. I don't want to speak for you, Olivia. I do have some additional time. So if we want to do a brief Q&A, I'm absolutely up for it. For those of you who do have to hop off, thank you again for being here. It's very, very meaningful for us to continue this conversation and to be thinking a little differently about this massive, historic, and truly revolutionary rollout of this new technology.
Oh yeah, I'm open for questions. I'm really sad that we didn't get to our pontificating on the AI and the human experience, but maybe I'll just have to write about it.
There's our content for the next.
Well, there's our content. There's my content, guys. Watch out for the pontification.
Does anyone have any questions? Again, we're open.
Oh, here's one. Okay. Oh, Brian said thank you. Thank you for attending, Brian.
I'm answering that question live. I've not done that today. Brian, thanks so much for being here. And also, I do really appreciate the question that you asked, the point you made about the very human components of this technology, and that question about prompting for financial advice, I think is extremely important because much like how people are using TikTok, they're going to be using ChatGPT, they're going to be using Bing's ChatGPT-4 powered AI assistant to answer questions like that. And so we really have to be prepared. And I think from an advisory perspective, probably conversations that you want to be having, and social gives us a great opportunity to be able to do that, to just caution people to say, hey, look, you've probably already gone to Bing and typed in your question about your portfolio, how to diversify, how to get out in front of the recession nobody's still talking about. Please, please be careful and understand you're not getting professional advice, and you're certainly not getting advice that's geared to your own very human, real concerns about using wealth to build well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you are able to use the tool to create make a creative brief for your email or for your article or your social media post, please think about some of the things that I said in reviewing my example, which is, what is the human side of this piece of information, and how is my target audience going to feel about not reaching their milestone, not, taking too much risk on? What are the real life implications of the data that you're collecting from ChatGPT? And that's a way that you can supplement it to actually make it something that you can use. Because in doing so, you're speaking to the human, you're using this tool as a tool, not as a replacement. And I think that's, what a lot of this is about, is just being responsible with the tool, and having integrity with the tool, remaining ethical, making sure that everything is secure. Those touch points that we saw earlier from Derek's prompt, those 5 or 6 touch points, just be aware of them and proceed with caution.
Well, and another really quick thing, you'll notice in the prompts that I displayed over the course of the presentation, you saw the word please. We are training this assistive technology as we go. And so little things like please and thank you, I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think it's important because, again, it is not yet, and this will be another conversation for another day, sentient, as far as we know. Although, please note, Google just settled with the employee it fired a year or 2 ago, who had claimed publicly that they had built, they did not launch it, but that they had built a sentient AI network. That settlement just took place last year, I believe. So there are some very, very real concerns. And this was not the only Google employee to be fired or to resign. There, I think, entire ethics board resigned over its exploration and implementation of AI technologies. So it is not beyond the pale, and you're hearing increasingly experts. In fact, the man who's referred to as the godfather of AI recently came out and said very pointedly, when asked, So when do the machines take over? Like, is that a thing? And his response was, all I'm going to say is, it's not inconceivable. This is from the guy who is known as being one of the key innovators of that entire space and new technology, coming out and telling us we have things to be concerned about. So if we are training this machine to think, and that's a debatable point, let's try to help train it to think with dignity and to respond to us in ways in which we would want to be responded to.
Sounds ridiculous, because I'm one of those people who's like, what, like people with the dogs and the cats, and they treat them like children. And now you're telling me to treat my AI like a human? But I mean, what is the cost of not doing so? So let me ask that question. I think I'd rather be on the safe side, but I will admit, sometimes I get a little snarky with my AI because I don't like its response.
And I think it's, again, one of the other components that you'll see is you have the ability to rate responses. And so you can click the thumbs up or thumbs down, and you actually can provide feedback as well. I think that's a helpful component. Brian, you had asked a question. I'm answering live. How far are we away from AI being able to give sufficient financial advice? I'm not well enough positioned. I'm not far enough ahead of the curve. And Jane, thank you so much for being here. I'm not far enough ahead of that curve, Brian, to say, and I will be honest, I prompted ChatGPT and GPT-4 to give me estimates, and it refuses to do so. So, and that's not just in relation to the lobotomy of Sydney that occurred a couple of weeks ago. It's being very, very careful about predicting. But, you just have to think, if we just put our advisor hats on, our marketing hats on, there's so many compliance and legal issues at play here. And we didn't even mention during our presentation all of the pending litigation surrounding, this is mostly in the arts and culture sector, but most of these companies that have built these generative AI tools have significant pending litigation against the ways in which they have harvested information. So Microsoft is named in some of those suits. Google is named. This is particularly true in terms of the data sets that have been trained using artwork and visual imagery. And so we also have to be very, very careful about that. It could well be over the course of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, we get rulings in these cases which limits our ability to use these technologies. And so I do want to say, for those companies that have been early adopters and who have built that into their marketing and their promotional materials, I think they probably want to be a little more cautious than they've been to date. So companies like Snap, Instacart, Bain & Company, they've all been very, very public about their adoption of ChatGPT. And it could well be a year from now, 2 years from now, a lot of that technology has been limited due to litigation and concerns about intellectual property rights. So that is another key component.
Speaking about compliance, I do have a financial advisor client that their compliance reviewer, let's see, we've been together since 2018, and it was like in 2020 that they made them start citing my firm in collaboration with. So every article that they write this is authored by name of advisor in collaboration with Lexicon. It was content development, now it's advisor marketing. But so, that could be another thing that we see in the future is, compliance, insisting that you give collaborative credit to whichever AI model that you're using. So it would be, Derek Pollard in collaboration with ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever, and maybe the date even, because of the updates that happen all the time. You have date and timestamp of the conversation that you had with your AI for compliance purposes. I don't know.
So just to let you know, and I forget which article it was because I've been swimming in them for the past 3 weeks, but there was an article that I saw. It was either CNET, CNBC, if I remember correctly, and at the bottom, it had a an attachment, one paragraph, letting the readers know that it had been AI assisted.
Kristen Luke sent an email, I mean, about 6 weeks ago that said that her introduction to the email was written in assistance with ChatGPT.
Yeah, which again gives us the opportunity to be transparent. I do want to emphasize that point. Neither you nor I is saying don't use this, stay away. I know what we are saying is use it intentionally, be deliberate, and to the questions and the points that have been raised, do your due diligence to get in front of that regulatory curve, to get in front of that compliance curve, so that you're leading the way, so that when other people encounter your content, when other people encounter your advice, they're keenly aware of the degree to which you have used assistive AI technology. It only helps, right? And it's going to create greater familiarity. It's going to create a greater level of trust. And as I've said before, the conversations that you're all having, that we had the good fortune to plug into today, right, are the conversations that are going to help determine how this technology evolves and the degree to which we can rely upon it. So I can't say enough how much I appreciate the work you're all doing, your interest, your concern, the ways that you are structuring these conversations, and the opportunity that you've given us today to join you in the work that you're doing.
Right. So if nobody else has any questions, I think that we'll let you all get on with your day. Again, this has been a pleasure to meet with everybody and have this conversation. Derek, thank you for getting me out of my comfort zone and talking about this. I'm really happy that we did. I hope that it's helpful for people who are in attendance and who will receive the recording. We'll also be uploading it to my YouTube channel under Lexicon Advisor Marketing in the next few days. If it's something that you're interested in going back and revisiting again, or sharing with, anybody that you think might benefit. So, do you have anything else, Derek?
I don't. Again, I really appreciate. I know this was a tall ask at the start, and I know that you had some deep reservations. I'm thrilled that we had a chance to sit down and have this conversation. And I do want to say, for those of you who are still on the call and will be watching this recording, I continue, Olivia, to learn from all of the work that you're doing in this space, and I really appreciate your willingness to pull the curtain back a bit, because I think the more we know collectively about how to use these tools ethically, responsibly, intentionally, the better off we're all going to be. And to your point earlier, the quicker we get away from garbage in, garbage out, right? And I love the fact that the word human keeps coming up more and more in these conversations, and not just in responses from ChatGPT. These conversations and the way that we're having them, the opportunity to Jessica, as you had said earlier, connect the dots, bring people together. I don't have concerns that that's going to go away. And I think what we're going to find is people are
band us together.
People are going to be even more responsive to businesses and advisors and individuals who are prioritizing that human connection. That's
and putting the human, yes, and putting the human first in their marketing.
Yeah, it is. We are past the point of B2B marketing. It's H to H at this point. So, well, Olivia, thanks again. I really appreciate the opportunity. Every time we have a chance to sit down and talk, I come away enthused, inspired, fired up.
Yeah, me too.
And I can't thank everyone again for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's 12:15, so we're outie.
All right. Peace.